Welcome back to Forester Asks Questions. I'm Tom Coates, I'm a chartered forester, and I've been recording some conversations that I've been having with people from across the forestry sector to really highlight some of the careers, some of the people and some of the challenges that the forestry industry faces. Last week I was out with David Leslie, the Joint Managing Director of James Jones and Sons, the company that I work for, and we were out visiting some of the forest property that the company owns, and we were talking about things like productive forestry and homegrown timber and the importance of producing more homegrown timber. So I recorded some of the conversation and some of the questions that were asked. I hope that you find this episode interesting, and please feel free to give any feedback in the comments. Thank you. So I'm with David Leslie of James Jones and Sons, and we're out visiting some of the company-owned forest property. David, do you want to just say a little bit about yourself and also, the company's approach to forest management?
Yeah, I'm Joint Managing Director of James Jones and Sons, as you know, Tom. I've been working for the company for 19 years, and I started as effectively doing the timber buying for the company. And I've worked through the business running a couple of the North sawmills, the I-joist plant at Forres. Over that time, I've been responsible for the company's woodlands, which were around about 400 hectares when I started in 2006, and are now 6,400 hectares across Scotland and North England. I previously worked for Scottish Woodlands in the northeast, and I've worked for the Forestry Commission, for Fountain Forestry and for Till Hill. So I've effectively got 20 years of forestry experience, 20 years as a harvesting manager and sawmill manager, and now managing director of the group.
Yeah, and do you want to say a little bit about the property that we're at today and sort of maybe the company objectives when it comes to forest management?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I live about 5 miles away from here, and I was made aware of this ground through Scottish Woodlands, Jamie Adamson at Scottish Woodlands. This area, about 100 hectares, 250 acres was available. Jamie and I visited it, and I realised that access was quite tricky. So as part of that, we bought an extra 20 hectares to give a better access onto the hill of existing woodland. We then, with Scottish Woodlands, went in for a forestry grant scheme for 95 hectares of new planting on what was a degraded hill that had been heavily grazed sheep and cattle for a very long time, and we got approval for a planting scheme over that 95 hectares. The scheme it's UKFS compliant or UKWAS compliant. It is 64% sitka spruce, 6% Norway spruce, which is just behind us here. It's 7% Scots pine, 5% broadleaves. The remainder is open ground, and that open ground is focused around the wetland areas of the hill, which were identified through a vegetation and ground survey. And we have also broken up the property with open ground so that we can do small felling coops in the future.
Okay, and that's how the property will be managed through rotational felling and providing timber for the sawmills?
Yeah, the aim of our woodlands overall is to provide timber for the sawmills. Across the 6,400 hectares, we're running at about 63% Sitka spruce.
Okay.
So the priority is to provide whitewood timber for the sawmills. That portfolio provides 2% of our timber requirement over the next 40-year rotation. So it's a very small amount of timber in the scheme of things.
Yeah. And so I guess what would your message be to sort of other forest owners and sort of the future of forestry, let's say, from a productive point of view?
Well, I truly believe this to be a sustainable forest. It's registered under the Woodland Carbon Code, so there's under Woodland Carbon Code we've got 10,000 tonnes of carbon registered in this forest, over a very short period, a 35-year rotation, when we expect this to be felled. It'll generate a large amount of income. It'll provide a lot of timber for James Jones and Sons for the future, as well as for other industries locally. It'll provide sustainable jobs. We've done some calculations on this hill, and you're looking at about 0.1 of a full-time job for this woodland. When it was a hill ground farm, now it is probably 1 to 1.5 full-time jobs between the work that was done in the planting. At the moment, we're putting in some access roads, which will also be for public access. So we've got a ring route in here, and the road that we put in through the property gives access between 2 public roads and a community to allow people to run and cycle through the property, which we aim to publicise. But in terms of what we've got here, it's going to provide timber, it's going to provide jobs, and actually it's a very nice place to come and walk, as we're doing amongst broadleaves, the pond, an open hill which we're standing on at the moment.
Brilliant. So David, you mentioned a little bit about the Woodland Carbon Code and how Tilly Rye has maybe been used as a little bit of a case study on that. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, we have several of our woodlands registered under the Woodland Carbon Code, and these were actually registered at a time that a higher level of conifers across or UKFS standards were permitted before the changes as we moved into the later versions of the Woodland Carbon Code. And that has really restricted the percentage of conifers that you can plant in these areas from the 64% in one species here down to 40%. So what we've done here is we're modelling this, which is under the Woodland Carbon Code, at 64% over a 35-year rotation. So we'll grow it on for 35 years, then we'll fell it, and we'll take the timber away, and then the carbon code stops. It stops sequestering carbon. Even though we'll replant it, do the same again, produce timber products, we'll go into houses and pallets and fencing and store timber and carbon for the next 15 to maybe a couple of 100 years. And then again. So what we did was we said, right, what if we planted this woodland as the next Woodland Carbon Code, which was, I think, version 2 or version 3, 40% conifer. And Emma Kerr from Scottish Woodlands did a study on this, which she's presented at last year at a MICFor conference in London, and that showed the reduction in timber products, the reduction in jobs. So we did it with jobs, with timber products, sequestration of carbon, if we did that. We then did one for planting this with broadleaves, and there are broadleaves behind us here which are probably growing at yield class 6 versus the yield class 20 that we're typically getting off this site from the conifers, and we've compared them all. The broadleaves, the really sad story is these broadleaves will never produce timber for houses. They'll probably never produce a significant number of jobs. Probably, if this had been planted with broadleaves, we're looking at probably that 0.1, 0.2 jobs from this area that there was when it was in agriculture. The Woodland Carbon Code's changed. There's a new version, so we're going to run the same model. But what we've done is we've effectively taken a timber felling from a wood near here, and we've taken all the timber products and modelled them through from our own harvesting operations through the sawmill to the range of products and how that stores carbon. So it's a really interesting comparison against what a Upquas UKFS woodland to the sort of maximised standards that we have today with other conifers will produce in terms of sequestrating carbon. And comparing that to Woodland Carbon Code woodlands and other. And we're also doing a financial model on that because we don't really know what the value of the carbon here is. We're probably never going to sell it because we might need that carbon in our timber products in 30 years' time.
And I guess one of the common tropes or the common things that are sort of fired against conifer plantings like this is biodiversity. And you mentioned that there's, we've done studies here, there's ecological surveys on bird life. Can you say a little bit about that as well?
When we took over the land here, we had to do a ground vegetation survey, and then we also had to do a bird survey. And that informed us on where we had to leave open space and any restraints. And there are no protected species on this ground when we did that survey, so it wasn't an issue in how we planted it. And Forestry Commission took that, or Scottish Forestry took that into account. I decided, in my role as looking after the woodlands, and with some of this pressure, to redo that survey after 5 years to see what the difference was. And actually what we saw was that we had 3 times the number of birds, species, that there were when this area was farmland. That included that we had red grouse, black grouse in the area. We had lost a couple of wading birds. We have a pond area behind us here, and since the keeper who looks after the area has seen wading birds in this area, but there are extensive areas of wetland round about where those wading birds are in plentiful numbers.
Okay.
So we've benefited by a huge range of species.
Yeah.
Of course, those numbers will reduce, but we're going to keep these surveys going over the life of the property. This one here and the property we have in Galloway in southwest Scotland, just to compare where that's going, because I think it's really important to give people true information.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
100 hectare property, it's a nice round number. Yeah. It's very close to Edinburgh. Yeah. Got people here, really, really important property in terms of a demonstration woodland where we can bring people here and show them what we're doing in all aspects of the forest for the future.
Fantastic. Hopefully not in the rain. It's just started. So we're in a slightly different property now. It's a mature block, not far away from the one we were in previously. But David mentioned in one of the other questions about the importance of timber supply. So maybe, do you want to say a little bit about the new campaign that's out about the C16 timber, homegrown timber, and the importance of strategic timber supply from our own forest properties?
Absolutely. We're in this property which is called Glen Key, which is 250 hectares. It's 140 hectares of spruce, quite large areas of broadleaves and open ground, because this property was planted in the late 80s when we moved into the new phase. So we've been planting really aquos or UKFS compliant forests since that time, but nobody's really noticed yet. But this area has large areas of open ground. It also has large areas of broadleaves. It's adjacent to woodland trust properties next door. So it's very attractive forest near Yetsid Mucket in Cookmanonshire, and it's a bit of a spruce factory. And behind us are some spruce logs, spruce 4.9s, which are being cut by. We've got a 12,000 ton clear fell here. We're producing 4.9s and 3.7s for the mill at Lockerbie, and pallet wood, 2.5 pallet wood for the mill at Lockerbie, some fencing and small roundwood that's going to West Fraser, Cowie, and various biomass markets, because there's some dead wood in the stand. We're leaving some dead wood, but also some of the dead wood in the stand is being cleared and taken out at the same time for biomass. The important product here is the 4.9 material, which is for the construction market. So this will go to Lockerbie. It'll be cut into construction sections and graded to C16 for the timber market. And that, at the moment, we've got a campaign going which is being widely publicised, where C16 is the British grade of timber. This timber's grown quite fast, so it's not as strong as European timber, but as we say, it's fit for purpose. It's fit for purpose for probably 80% of the construction work that's going on in new housing and renovation in the UK. And critically here, it can be sold to local markets. And that's the thing. We're importing timber from Scandinavia that's C24. It's a higher quality, but it's fit for purpose as well. And that's being shipped into Grangemouth, which is 10 miles away. And some of this timber is having to go deep south, heavy transport costs in haulage, rather than it being used locally. The panacea is to grow it here, take it to a sawmill reasonably nearby, process it and sell it in Scotland and North England. And this timber is perfect for that construction material. And we're growing more of it here. As I say, 2% of our timber will be from our own forests. But of this clear fell here, we're probably looking at about 5,000 to 6,000 tonnes of logs, which will go to Lockerbie and put into construction timber.
Okay. And finally, just to sort of leave us with your thoughts on how optimistic are you about the future of both productive forestry and homegrown timber in the UK?
Well, we import 83% of our timber products, and some arguments around that, but even if it's 75%, it's a huge figure. Timber's becoming short around the world. Population growth is seeing people saying a tripling of demand for timber products by 2050. And we have to grow more timber here to satisfy our needs. We have to build more houses with timber because concrete and steel are huge emitters of carbon. And we can grow these forests which sequestrate carbon dioxide. They grow timber which goes into construction, can be sold locally, and we'll replant the ground behind us with another crop which will do the same again and again. The spruce that we're growing here, people worry about spruce bark beetle from the continent, but as you see today, it's very wet. And the levels of rainfall we get in Scotland, spruce bark beetle can't exist in that climate. So we have a good future here for growing spruce and other conifers. When we replant this site, we'll integrate some other conifers in it, some Douglas fir, some Norway spruce, and some other conifers that are within the resilience plan, because we are keen to trial these things as well as produce a core of timber that we can use in our sawmills.
So relatively optimistic.
Absolutely. And we wouldn't be planting forests today. We're planting new forests today. I think it'll be one of the best investments we've ever made. And I think that timber will be very sought after in 20, 30 years' time as it becomes scarce around the world.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, David.